Is marriage dying in America? And what does the newest Barna research tell us about marriage, divorce, and the modern Christian? Here's the point. New American research from the Barna Group reveals a sobering reality about marriage and divorce in America, one that should deeply concern every Christian. According to their largest marriage and family study in over 20 years, only 46% of U.S. adults are married today, down from 2/3 of American adults in 1950. The average age of the first marriage has increased from age 22 to now age 30 for men, and age 20 to now age 28 for women. Divorce rates remain steady at 18%, with over half of those remarrying. But here's what should alarm us most. Christians divorce at the same rate as everyone else. Practicing Christians, those who regularly attend church and say their faith is important, are just as likely to have been divorced as non-Christians, 16 to 20% across the board. Even more troubling, 58% of all adults now say it's wise to cohabitate before marriage, including 42% of practicing Christians. This represents a dramatic shift in how even believers view marital intimacy, sexual purity, and God's design for marriage. Gen Z still values marriage. 81% say they believe in it and hope to wed someday. But they're rethinking what family and commitment looks like based on their observations of culture. They're the least likely generation to say traditional marriage is important for raising children. So how should we think about this? And here's the point. First, the church has failed to distinguish itself from the culture when it comes to marriage. When Christians divorce at the same rate as non-Christians, something is fundamentally broken. This isn't just about the individual failures. It reveals that the church has not adequately discipled believers in what marriage actually is and why it matters eternally. Marriage isn't merely a social contract or a romantic relationship that can be dissolved when it becomes convenient or difficult. It's a covenant before God that reflects Christ's unfailing relationship with his church. When the divorce rate inside the church mirrors the divorce rate outside the church, the cultural rot is pervasive. We cannot disciple our nation if we cannot disciple our own marriages and families. We cannot call the world to faithfulness when we model unfaithfulness in our most sacred and fundamental relationships. Second, the acceptance of cohabitation, even among Christians, reveals how deeply secular culture and social mores have infiltrated the church. When 42% of practicing Christians say it's wise to live together before marriage, we've adopted worldly standards over biblical holiness. Scripture is unambiguously clear that sexual intimacy belongs exclusively within marriage. There's no biblical category for test driving or try before you buy relationships. The research is clear that cohabitation before marriage doesn't strengthen relationships. It weakens them. Couples who live together before marriage have even higher divorce rates. Yet many undiscipled men and women in our churches have bought the lie that biblical standards are unrealistic or outdated. This accommodation isn't compassionate or biblical. When we compromise God's design to make Christianity more cachet, casual, or palatable, we rob people of genuine joy, marital intimacy, and any hope of saving their marriages. Third, delayed marriage and declining marriage rates reveal a failure to teach the purpose and value of marriage. The average age of first marriage has increased significantly, nearly a decade. Young adults are postponing marriage longer than ever before, not because they don't value it, but because they fear the responsibility and feel unprepared for it. The church has treated singleness as a waiting room rather than a formative stage for discipleship. We have failed to prepare worthy men and worthy women for marriage. We failed to equip them for the spiritual battle that lies ahead. Marriage isn't about personal or romantic fulfillment. It's about covenant faithfulness, raising godly children, and advancing God's kingdom. When we lose this vision, marriage becomes optional and ancillary rather than foundational. So, what must we do? We must return to teaching marriage as God designed it, not as the culture defines it. Churches must prioritize marriage discipleship and preparation, not just coordination of wedding ceremonies. We must disciple singles towards godly marriage, supporting struggling couples with biblical support, and walk with those recovering from divorce towards healing and restoration. We must stop compromising to accommodate cultural trends. Cohabitation isn't wisdom, it's open rebellion. Delayed marriage isn't maturity, it's often fear-based and adolescent immaturity. Divorce isn't inevitable, it's a failure to honor the covenant and trust Christ in marital difficulty. The data reveals what we already know in our hearts. The church is losing the battle for marriage, but this battle isn't lost. When God's people return to God's design, marriage flourishes. When we teach covenant faithfulness rather than romantic feelings, families thrive. Pastors should teach marriage regularly. Parents should model covenant faithfulness before their children. Young believers should pursue marriage as God's good and glorious gift to be stewarded and to be enjoyed. Why is marriage under attack? Why is marriage always under attack? Because marriage matters. It reflects the gospel. It reflects God's glory. It builds and shapes the next generation. It's integral in God's plan for kingdom building. By God's grace, we can enjoy the blessing of one marriage, one family, and one church until Christ returns or calls us home.